Hi, everybody. Deb SaBell here, and I am welcoming you to the Win-Win Women Network. And I've got a special guest today that I'm so excited about. I am a support advocate for caregivers and support folks of any genre. Actually, we could do a group, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, just reach out and that'll all be on the website for you to do. But I'm so excited because we have a guest. I want to jump into that. Everybody meet Rick Shugarman. Now, Rick is a yoga person. I say it like that because I met Rick at a retreat for myself with my healing process. I have been trying to delve into yoga for the longest time. And, they're always so over my head. I feel like I look silly. And then I met Rick at one last year in Arizona. And then, of course, so Rick is from Santa Monica. And with the fires that happened in Malibu, I watch his Instagram, and all of his posts have been about helping people with little vignettes that are simple and so easily done. And I'm kind of going to throw it over to him at this point because I think he can explain it better. He has got a whole healing piece to his yoga instruction that is so phenomenal. And by the way, we will have all of his information on my website attainable for you. And he's willing to, give us some stuff to check him out. And he's got a couple books. We'll talk about that. But Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So good to see you, Debbie. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
It's really nice. Yeah, what you're saying about the healing aspect of yoga, what I found is a very common experience, and it was my experience 8 years ago when I took my first yoga class, was confusion, intimidation, a misperception that yoga is about being in pretzel shapes. And at that time, my fitness was a little bit more based on just traditional weightlifting and playing sports and these kinds of things. And so if I'm going to go spend, I think, $20 for my first yoga class, I want to come away feeling like I got a workout. But I came away feeling confused. And it took me several years to really find a place of comfort where I felt really confident doing yoga. And then after getting my teacher's training and becoming certified and then teaching a lot, I have developed a program that is all about starting people off from a place of, I can. I want people's very first experience, the very first pose to go, oh, I can do this. Because the truth is that almost everybody can do this. And I'm working with a gentleman in his 80s right now who's had many, many different health issues, and we're working on expanding ranges of motion and very, very, very basic stuff. But the amount of improvement that a beginner sees is oftentimes very, very exciting. Sometimes we have these really slow growth trajectories where we really have to spend a lot of time in the early part of that exponential compound growth curve. But with yoga, many times the experience, if we start people at the right level, is confidence sets in, they become aware of different aspects of their body, and just that awareness and confidence leads to this beautiful, beautiful flowering of a practice that is life-changing for many, many people.
I love it. Maybe you could touch on so many of your posts in the past month have been what I want to call healing and really have touched me in a way, not only making it accessible, but you just really spoke to the necessity for people to have a way to calm their insides. And with a lot of the people that when you're in a caregiving position for someone, let's say that's really ill, you don't get a break. I mean, I used to have what I called my meditation room, but I also have tried to do yoga too. But so many of your posts were just so intended for people really in such an internally hard space. And I would love to hear your input on that because you really, your posts are incredible, I'll just say.
Appreciate that. It's very nice. It means a lot. the posts to me are really, social media is an opportunity to express myself, express my heart, and so to have the feedback is meaningful. And that's really what those posts were, is we were having the Palisades fire, the Eaton fire, and I live in Santa Monica, and I live on the northern side of Santa Monica. And so we actually had evacuation warnings, evacuations coming within literally a block from us, and we had National Guard throughout our entire neighborhood. We couldn't go 6 blocks north from where we were. That's how close everything was. And through the process, what's happening is the unimaginable. Oftentimes, when I have experienced fires before, I've never known someone whose home is burned down. I know people who maybe know someone, but a couple homes in most fires, maybe. But here, the rate, and we started hearing, not only were we concerned for our own home and our own safety, and did we have these, tons of smoke and everything coming over, but we were finding out that people who are close to us that we care about were losing their homes, and it was really heavy. And you have life going on, you still have your job, and the rest of the world is sympathetic, but they also want you to get your work done. A lot of what I do involves stuff on the East Coast as well. And so what I found was that I stopped posting at the beginning. It was just too intense and I didn't know what to express. I didn't really know what I was feeling. I had become very like tight and locked up. And several days in, maybe 5 days in, it was late at night. I couldn't sleep. And I just said, Rick, like, come to your own teaching. Come, like, try some yoga. And so I went to a very basic pose, a child's pose, one of the beginning and resting poses. And I just about pulled my neck, at which point it was like this light bulb that went off. Rick, you are so tight and you're not even aware of how tight you are. You really need to now come inward and do the work yourself to feel your body, understand, become aware, and work through this physical stress. And so one of the first posts was me just doing an hour. I didn't know what it was going to be. I just turned the camera on and said, look, I basically said what I just said. And I said, now I'm going to go through my process. And my process is a lot of self-directed yoga where I just listen and I feel this. And like each pose is kind of like vocabulary. It's a conversation. The body speaks. We learn to listen. Poses are vocabulary to communicate back to the body. And so I just started that conversation and very slowly worked through it. And so there's this, I don't know, it's an hour-long thing of just me working through it. And at the end of it, no, I wasn't back to normal, but the edge had been taken off. And so then being aware of that, the light bulb hit, like there's no way I'm the only person who has this amount of tension and who's unaware and who will benefit from this. So then I started to try to create posts with shorter solutions, not hour-long solutions, but accessible solutions. And an example, are you familiar with Dr. Andrew Huberman?
No.
Dr. Andrew Huberman is a really, really popular person like YouTube and social media coming out with contemporary scientific innovations. And one of the things that he was talking about was just the exhale, something as basic as the exhale. And he goes through the medical explanation of why, which we can get into, but just how we can emphasize the exhale by extending the exhale, we can trigger a parasympathetic nervous system response, a calming response that through that exhale, we can reduce blood pressure, we can lower respiration rate, we can get ourselves into a place where digestion resources will be directed toward that. Your pupils will constrict a little bit, allowing less light into the system, bringing us out of fight or flight. And so I did a post on that where
bingo, getting out of fight or flight. You were so speaking. I just want to interrupt to say real quick, what you're talking about right now is part of what I am putting together for my retreats, this healing yoga, the breath work. I go and do all of that, and that's what I'm about now, is putting that together for other people to share, but especially about what you just said about that. And to go back a second ago, when you were talking about, I saw that post, and that post, I was smiling intently when you started talking about it. That is exactly when in my case, I was a caregiver for a terminally ill person, and you cannot get away because they could die if you leave. And, at a certain point, unless you get someone to fill in for you, you are stuck there 24/7. And so I had a meditation room, and I would go in and put on a guided meditation, which I see, this is so perfect because I know you have that as well. And we've already talked about that you kind of already, I think, have ones toward healing meditations and guided, but we can talk about going forward where we can get that for people, because literally that was my only escape, but it was a great escape. I made the room, I would light candles, I would put on a guided meditation, because otherwise you can't get your mind out of focus of what's going on around you. And it could be a ventilator, it could be whatever, or that your loved one is in a bad place. So um all the breath work, the healing yoga, and I'm going to coin it that because really that's so pertinent for what we here need in this genre. And then I also like what else you were saying. So um talk a little bit about the most people have experience with meditations, but kind of like what you said, yours being different. And I also know that you write music, and I don't know if that's part of your meditations. You can let us know that as well. But like all of this can be very calming for someone, whether they're going through a simple fight or flight. I mean, maybe someone had an accident, maybe things are really and truly, I always say the support system, we all support each other. It's so much bigger than just for caregivers, really. But the caregivers are the ones that are really affected because they're taking care of someone and not living their own life. So getting that break and going to a closed room and putting on a guided meditation. So maybe you want to talk about what you've done and what you can do with healing guided meditations for us a little bit that we can access going forward here.
Absolutely. So high level, I have a couple of meditations online that are very peaceful. They're well shot, and the guidance is very just gentle and pleasant. They're short 5-minute meditations, and so we can share those links. The I also have a meditation protocol, like a training program for meditation, and it's once again just built out of my own experience. My first 2 to 3 years of meditation were basically feeling of frustration, failure, quitting. Then I'd read more about it. I was very interested in it, so I'd come back to it, and then I'd fail and quit, and then come back. And this cycle went on many times until I found out what I think is the fundamental unlock for me, that we're not trying to get a quiet mind. A quiet mind is like the LeBron James of basketball. It's the Dalai Lama level. What we want is a quieter mind. And quieter is very achievable. If on a scale of 1 to 10, we're at a 7, we're stressed and the mind is really active, we can go through some basic processes and come down to a 5. And that difference from a 7 to 5 is life-changing. It's very, very meaningful. And that is readily accessible for most people. What I wanted is, if I was at a 7, I was expecting to get to a 0, and that's just pretty unrealistic. Even the most, if you go talk in, like, let's say local Los Angeles to very experienced meditators, the ones who are speaking honestly will acknowledge, no, my mind is never truly silent. And so that more forgiving approach, quieter, seeking improvement, that's what my process is about. And it starts with not even trying to, like, when you go for focus, if you're like, oh, I'm doing the meditation because I want focus, or I want clarity, or I want peace, I think that's harder. If instead we focus on the mechanics and it's like, okay, I'm going to practice sitting here and just breathing, and really the physical aspect of it is I'm going to feel the urge to leave. I'm going to want to get up. All I'm going to do is just sit here. When we get good at just sitting there, not focusing on peace and clarity, because that's hard at the beginning, but just the physical process of sitting there, what we find is that it's kind of like a bank shot, a rebound. The peace and the clarity then starts to come once we get comfortable with the physical, just being still. Many people have trouble with stillness right out of the gate. It's very difficult, especially when we're anxious. And so I focus on the physical part first, because I find that the cognitive benefits follow from that.
I love that. And I've just myself gone through 2 years of working in cognitive training for myself. So that resonates as well. And that's why I think you're just such a great fit for this. I mean, it's a godsend that I met you in my life. Ironically, I will tell everybody I got to this retreat and I hurt my foot and I ended up leaving, but I met some of the most incredible people like Rick that I was so impressed with the 2 days that I was there. And Rick, what's great about you is your calmness. And all of us, especially people that have a lot of anxiety because of what they've gone through and are might not be over yet. Um, I want people to understand that they can get their life back. That's the emphasis of really my work, is to say, well, that's another story of all the reasonings and the how-tos. But the point is, I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to live and really be whole again. And I have now gotten there and had a lot of tragedy. And so now I'm on the journey of finding practical things to keep me in this great place that I'm in. And believe me, most people that are true full-time caregivers will tell you, especially if it's for a loved one, um, and actually when I was doing it for other people, it's the same, except I always got joy out of trying to take them out of their sad place. And those are some cool stories. But for myself, I want to keep myself in this incredible good space that I have finally worked to get to. And it's taken a long time, but a lot of people know the term that, you know, the beliefs that we have, they're called limiting beliefs. That's Tony Robbins' thing, just to get that. I don't want to misspeak like it's mine, but I've learned a lot from listening to him talk about that. And I am bound and determined. And I know that there's people out there that are in the same shoes as myself. We've been through so much. And the key now is that's why I was trying to do yoga. And I do breath work and I go to meditative retreats and stuff like that. And so now I'm going to put my own together for everybody. But your genre of work is just with that healing twist to it. Like I said, I saw so many posts that you did in the last month or so since the fires. And it's like, boy, this could really help the caregivers of the world when they need to get a break. And we just have to lead them with tapes. I mean, tapes and listening to it. It's what did it for me, but it's hard to do. So I appreciate all of your input that you just gave with that and understanding that piece of it. And I knew with what you had just been through, because I saw your posts, that I was like, he gets it. You totally get it. You're such an empathic, incredible person, I will say. And not everybody has that capacity. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I really mean that. Well, so I will direct people with how to get to you on my site, and maybe we can put together a little a link that's got whatever you want to put out there for them to get them into that mode. And then they can also go to your website. And I mean, I know you have 2 books and other meditations I'm sure that they could buy, but if we could start with of some of the healing pieces, because I know you've offered to do 1 or 2 things and for them, like the 5-minute ones where they could just, even if they get 5 minutes, I used to sit there with the caregiver bill of rights and my meditative music and a candle on and just pretend I'd read it over and over. And I will be posting that, by the way, on the website. That's an AARP thing that I literally lived by. If all I could do was put on the tape for the meditative music, which I couldn't get my monkey mind to focus, to be quite honest. So I loved what you said about it. See, that's a big misconception. we think I sit there and for a minute I'm good, and then I'm not. I'm in my head thinking about what's going on out in the other room. And I loved what you said about don't try to chunk off so much at once. It's just lowering it one or two levels to start. And that is so huge and really resonates with me. So thank you for that piece. And I'll have things posted. And let's see. So we're talking breath work, meditation, healing yoga. You
I could
had
add
it.
a couple things that you said that it would be fun to go a little bit deeper on.
Okay.
As it relates to the meditation, after in the protocol, the process that I have for teaching, after we work on the physical and we get comfortable just with the idea of stillness, and we start a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, then as we come to the mind, the protocol acknowledges as part of the process that the mind drifts. And what many people experience is they say, okay, we're taught to follow the breath. And so we're supposed to focus on the breath and maybe we're counting, but then we lose count and we are off in la la land for a minute. And then we'll notice that. And that moment when we realized that we lost count of the breath, that always felt like failing to me. I felt like I was doing it wrong, that I wasn't good in that moment. And what I've changed in my approach to it is, no, that's part of the process. And what we're really trying to train is awareness. And when you become an awareness of thought, so when the mind wanders off, which is inevitable, 100% it will always do that. Um, the moment you're aware of it, that's a success. And it really is a success.
Oh,
I'm aware of the I'm aware of the thinking. There's a separation between me and the thought now. There's my conscious self. Here's the thought. There's space there. And it's in that space that healing occurs, that calming occurs, when we become less identified with our thoughts. And so the the really valuable moment, I think, is for people who, like me, feel like they're failing every time their mind wanders, every time they see themselves thinking. No, no, that's a success. That's called thought awareness. And we score. Like every time we become aware of our thinking, then we come back to the breath. We're going to wander. We're going to become aware again. And we got another point. That's a second repetition of thought awareness. And in the beginning, meditation is just this process of developing thought awareness. And that's something that we can all do. That little reframing is a big unlock, I think, for people who struggle as I did and continue. Um, that's one thing I would on. Another thing that I would
out the front.
is that with yoga, a lot of people think like I did and think that yoga is this workout, and it can be. It's a fantastic method of exercise. But if your interest is calm, healing, recovery, one of the little secrets that you don't hear people say too much is that the majority of the benefits of yoga can be experienced with the most easy poses, the most basic poses. And part of why that is that when we just do gentle, basic little movements, the mind goes to the movement. We breathe in just the same intentional way as we do during meditation. But instead of having to sit there still, that little bit of movement gives us enough freedom to not feel uncomfortable sitting there. And the mind isn't wandering because we're thinking about that movement. And so, in just the most basic, gentle movements, we can really have a similarly calming experience as what meditation offers, but it's much more accessible to most people. It's not being taught commonly from that perspective, but that is the really, really low-hanging fruit opportunity that's available to it's available to everyone on the first session. You can, I mean, within 5 minutes, I'll work with people who have never done yoga, and you can see them. You can just see it like melting, and you can see the lightness coming through, and it's truly, truly, truly life-changing for many people. It's beautiful. Um, and so that is another way up for us to think about yoga. And what most people don't know is that there's a definition of yoga from the sutras 2,200 years ago. It's the second verse in the book, and it reads Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, and that's Sanskrit, and it means yoga is the calming of the wandering mind. Literally, like the formally written in Sanskrit definition from the Yoga Sutras 2,200 years ago is that yoga is the calming of the wandering mind.
Wow.
If whatever yoga you're doing, you end up at the end of it with a mind that's calmer, even if you didn't do any of the poses and you felt, If your mind's calmer, you have done at its core what yoga is all about.
I love that. And it's nice to learn that piece of it too, because I will tell you, that was my saving grace. The guided meditations, whether I was in for a while or not, um, that whole piece with calming the mind, even if it's just for a minute or two, that's such a learning piece. I always felt so like a failure with it. And that's how I am with yoga too. So I try and do it at home in front of the TV, unless I venture out at the retreat that I met you. And, I'm always the one behind everybody. But see, to your point, there isn't a lot of, I mean, there's beginner yoga, but I'm talking beginner healing yoga where it's the calmness of it all, calming the body. I love what you just said. So let's wrap up with
Can I make an
uh,
offer?
yeah, pardon, go ahead.
My offer, we can give the links, and I'd love for everybody to have the static content that's out there. But given what you're saying about your own experience with yoga, it would be a lovely opportunity for me to go through the level one of the program with you and help you find your yoga. And let's just go through the process together. If you wanted to invite other people to participate, we could do it as a group, or maybe you could model the struggle, be vulnerable even, and so also the growth that's available. And my belief is that in a half hour to an hour together, we could show to the world a person growing substantially and finding the accessibility and the peace. And I believe as well that at the end of that, your own experience with the practice will be forever changed.
That is a great idea. I love it. I'm willing to get vulnerable and do that. And I think that we can then post that on the site, even on your site. And for healing purposes for people in this position who, and like I said, at this point, because of everything that's gone on there, I mean, we've all been heartfelt to that as well. And this is I just feel like this is just the real beginning of people understanding for 12 years what I have been trying to bring forward to the world, to say you don't have to suffer. You don't. Yes, it's hard being in the place of that, and especially if it's a loved one, let's just be honest. But I mean, all of the caregivers now that I know that are true, these are the people that I call my true friends now, that have, they get it. They're there for you. Even myself, I would tell other people, I'm there for you. If you have an issue, just call me. I'm always there. And, that piece of that genre of giving back in life when the chips are down. I mean, we can all do great stuff when the everything's going great, but it's when you don't know when the next breath is going to be. You don't know a lot of things, and you don't even know what you're doing half the time, but you find your way through it. This is so, so important. So I would love to do that. And I will be putting your information for everybody. If you why don't you real quick at least give the name of your website, because, and say it slow so they can someone could write it down if they want to, and we'll put together some stuff. And on my website, which is on the show page, everybody can find, um we'll do your whole little conglomerate of what they can just click on. And if you're sitting in a room, it doesn't matter where you're sitting. If you're in a car, and I've gone out and gone to the car before and sat to get peace and quiet and just played something to get my mind off of stuff. So wherever you need it, we're going to provide everybody with something from Rick, a little genre of everything he does. And then we'll do your suggestion, and we'll do a beginner healing yoga with myself that they can access anytime, do it in their comfort of their home and or their meditation room or anywhere, and just get that calmness inside that you need to to stay out of fight or flight if possible. And if not, this will take you down a notch or two even.
Yep.
Okay, so tell everybody the name of your website, Rick.
So my company is called Beat Up the Sun, as you can see on the shirt. It refers to a morning routine of being up and moving as the sun is rising. And it's just the beginning of a personal growth mindset to start the day. So beatupthesun.com is the website. And at the website, the first link at the top will say your yoga, and that's the beginning of the yoga program. And there are 3 levels up there. If you start at the very first level 1, the beginning, I walk you through. You can just kind of watch the videos. They'll explain, and then pose by pose, you get to a place where there's one pose, a minute explanation of each one, and you can just go at your tempo. And the idea is not that you're going to get all 20, but you're going to find, as the name says, your yoga. What are your poses out of the 20? There's a little PDF you can download, a checklist where you can kind of check off and monitor your progress. It's just a nice, subtle little motivational tool. Next to it, you'll find a tab that says meditation. And the meditation protocol is there. Frankly, I think that meditation is better taught in person or Zoom. Like, it works just as well as Zoom. And so I offer that. Like, I offer, everything is free. My heart, I mean, honestly, I want to acknowledge how pure your heart is toward this, your sentiment is toward this. Uh,
Thank you.
I feel it so authentically, Debbie, and the world is fortunate to have what you're offering. I
Aw,
appreciate you inviting me to be a part of it. On the website, you'll find other things as well. And so I guess we could go, there's all sorts of little rabbit holes that we could go into, but we'll stick with high level, the yoga, the meditation. I do some songwriting. Some of it's just pure creative outlet, but I also write songs that are for healing and that are very intentionally written to be meditative and soothing. And so anyway, there's a whole world out there.
and I want to add one little piece because I personally have found so much enjoyment from it. So you have, because you, of course, you live right by the ocean and you're in Santa Monica. Um, a lot of times you'll go out in the early morning, you're beat up the sun, and you will do things where you know at the foot of the waves rolling in. And sometimes now that I've found them, so for me, just watching that, like I said, I'm not a pro yet or anything. I'm trying, but I want to tell everybody that just by watching the little posts that he does, and you can see the ocean in the background, the waves rolling in, and just watching his graceful moves, that alone, sometimes I just sit and watch those now because they calm me so much. Like I'm not in the mood to get on the floor and try and do something I'm not very good at yet. So I watch you, but it's in the early morning and the waves are rolling in so gently and your moves are so gentle. I just want to tell everybody to please take advantage of that, because sometimes that's all you can do. I mean, if you're in a room and someone's on a ventilator, you know what? You can put your phone on and watch that and get calm inside, maybe just a notch or two.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It means
Okay. Well, Rick, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so grateful to be here with you, sharing your incredible insight to the healing piece of what people need. Thank you. From my heart. And I'm going to say goodbye and sign off. And I hope everybody enjoyed today's segment. Thank you so much.